Trending in the AM meets the PM. Special breaking edition of the show tonight, just for one reason, to talk Phillies baseball. We need it. We need this Phillies Red October to get started so badly that we had to have a special episode tonight. Trending in the AM meets the PM starts in 30 seconds.
Fourth and goal.
And a very good evening, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM meets PM here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We've traded in the coffee and crumpets for a little whiskey and bourbon, and we're going to have ourselves a little fun tonight on Trending in the AM talking Phillies baseball. The hunt for Red October begins next week. I'm your host, Phil Stiefel. I got my main man, Mark Moschitelli, sitting in next to me here. Good evening, Mark. How you doing? It's been a long time.
It's been a little bit of time, yes. I rushed home from work to make sure that I am on your show here for the Phillies, because the last time you had me on as a guest in the morning, we tried to talk Phillies, or I tried to talk Phillies, and your loyal followers essentially kicked me off of the show. So hopefully, if we're not in that right time zone, we can maybe talk a little bit about the Phillies tonight and maybe get some good responses.
The thing I've been saying lately, we always bash the radio, WIP, the Fanatic. All they do is talk Eagles 24/7, 365 days a week, or a year. But it's play the greatest hits. That's what works, and that's what sells. Talking Eagles sells. Talking Phillies doesn't. Hey, everybody, make sure you hit the like button, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. It's free to do that. It doesn't cost you a thing to hit the like, the share, the subscribe, the follow. So make sure you do that for us right there. Mark, and shout out to Big Ed, man. How you doing tonight, man? I miss you in the morning. I do. But you take care of yourself and be well. I know it's not easy waking up in the morning for me. This pretty face doesn't get a lot of people out of bed. Mark, let's get started. Let's talk Phillies baseball here. Let's talk about Red October, which is upon us. And I want to get started first with, your overall opinion of this Phillies team as a whole, because more than most about how negative I've been about Rob Thompson's Phillies team most of the season. I've kept my opinions pretty quiet lately. I've kind of stayed away from talking Phillies baseball, but you know more than most how tough I am on this team. So where are you overall feeling as we are 3.5 games away from the playoffs starting here?
They're probably one of the most dangerous teams in baseball right now. They've won 10 of 12. They have a lead. The last time I checked tonight, you're talking about 11 of 13. I put it out there that they're done losing at home. Once they get in the playoffs, honestly, I can't see Arizona winning a game. Mm-hmm. I can't honestly. You had Spencer Strider come out this week and say that he'd rather pitch in a stadium that has no fans. Right. Gut check time. He's not going to be ready. He's not going to be ready. I'm and listen, I am the rah-rah guy, and I love the Phillies and all that stuff. But really, man, like last year they kind of backed in and you didn't know what to make of it, and they just caught some heat. Things bounced their way in that first wild card game, and then they just kind of took off from there, and they surprised some people. They got over the Braves. I didn't think they were going to beat the Braves. The Padres, then you weren't sure, especially toward the clincher game. They're fumbling it away, and then just they were a pleasant surprise, and they probably exceeded a lot of expectations. Now, I think going into this season, they had a ton of expectations. Harper got thrown out of the game. I love it. I love his moxie.
It just checked. It is 1-1 now. So, they blew their big 1-0 lead.
Yeah. There you go, Kyle. Let's go, man. But no, like coming into this season, they had higher expectations, and they got off to a really, really slow start. They were at one time 7 games under 500 in May. Like that's not good.
No.
But since June 1, they have the second best record in baseball, if I'm
It's
not
crazy
mistaken.
because that's the second year in a row that June started the turnaround of this team. Because last year, you said it perfectly. I mean, there was the backdoor in to an extent. You had to fire Joe Girardi. You had to exceed expectations to make it last year. This year, there's no surprising anybody. I brought up with you before the show that the Eagles question today on the morning show was, are the 2023 Eagles better than the 2022 Eagles? This Philadelphia Phillies team, in my opinion, is head and shoulders better, not just on paper, but on the field as well, than last year's team. There are question marks, but there's no sneaking up because people know how good this team, offensively speaking alone, there is not a team in baseball, I don't think, that can hit and rake as consistently 1 through 9 like the Philadelphia. Even at the bottom with Rojas, every single person on this team can hit. So there's no sneaking up on anybody whatsoever. But it's kind of weird how June 1st, right around that time, was Joe Girardi fired on June 2nd last year? It's like that. Once June comes, they flip that switch, and all of a sudden they're a different team.
They're a slow starting team, apparently. Well, here's the thing. We're talking about, next year, just to take a step ahead. The expectations are going to be even higher.
Yeah.
The Phillies need to next year. I mean, it's already too late this year. They got to kind of be the Atlanta Braves that are this year. They need to be a 100-win team.
Mhm.
They got to win this division and get one of these buys. Like you can't rely on backdooring into a wild card or winning your division, but being the third best and having to play that first weekend. You got to take another step forward next year. Now this year,
I got to cut you off. Michael Bryce, who are you? You're on Facebook and you gave us an angry face on Facebook instead of a like, a thumbs up, a heart, and you gave us an angry face. Do you dislike Phillies baseball that much that you're giving us an angry face emoji on Facebook? What is up with that? We're here having fun tonight. Sorry, Mark. I had to call whoever Michael Price is out on Facebook right away for that.
Well, Michael Price and everybody else who's out there that was hoping for some more Eagles talk today, we're talking Phillies, number one. Number two, I've said this on your shows on more than a few occasions. I've tweeted it out for those that are following. Philadelphia is a baseball town. It's a baseball town. That's right, sir. That's right. We are starving for a championship. And honestly, the Phillies got a really, really good shot to get there. Hell, they were only 2 wins away, beating they're the only ones that won any postseason games against the Astros last year. Mm-hmm. They swept their way in, and all of a sudden the Phillies punched them right in the mouth in game 1. And then game 3, they just went off with the home run. They were down 2-1. And they got themselves together and they ended up winning. They were the better team last year. This year, like the Phillies are going in with a different perspective. That they're going to be one of the, even though they're the top wild card, they're going to be one of the favorites. And there's a lot of, I mean, listen, I think TBS has the NLCS in the NL games this year. So they're looking forward to a repeat of the Braves and the Phillies. And I think that series, I'm going to be real. I think the Phillies can sweep them.
I'm more worried about the wild card round than the Braves at this point. And we'll get into that in a second. So I see Big Ed's question here. Will Nola and Hoskins be on the team next year? Ed, I'm not worried about next year yet. Let's get through this postseason. But I do want to discuss at some point here Nola and Hoskins on this playoff roster. Really quickly, though, I want to touch on something you said there, Mark, about the slow starts. At some point, wouldn't it be nice if the team didn't get off to a slow start? Like, what is it that causes these slow starts? And this is one of my big beefs with Rob Thompson. If he could have gotten this team off to a better start, we wouldn't be worried about the wild card round. We would have that bye. We would have more time to rest our starters, rest, Craig Kimbrell, who's, borderline having his arm held on by a, bobby pins right now. Like we need to find a way to get off to a quicker start because then we'd have less pressure right now. We wouldn't have to worry about the Cubs or the Diamondbacks or the Marlins next week.
I agree. And listen, not every team can be the 93 Phillies when you go, bell to bell with, in first place. But yeah, we were expecting a lot better showing earlier in the season, and it didn't happen. You know, Harper wasn't there. Turner was an absolute disaster early in the season. You know,
Schwarber was.
Schwarber, Schwarber, take away his batting average, and he's had a phenomenal season. But then look at his batting average and his strikeouts. How many of those strikeouts, if he was a little more disciplined or had a better eye on the ball or not swinging for a goddamn home run every at bat, would we have won a half a dozen games that we lost? I don't
wasn't he hitting like $160 through the first 2 months of the season? Like the fact that he's
horrible.
borderline 200 right now is borderline a miracle at this point. It's shown that he's come out of his slump. I want to get to Big Ed's comments here, and I want to talk Aaron Nola because we could talk offense all day, but I think the crux of this team is going to come down to pitching in the playoffs, especially the wild card. And I did a short little video last week. I don't know if you saw it. It was like a minute-long video, and I said in it that Aaron Nola is the wild card this playoff round, or run, period. That Aaron Nola having a great run or a bad run is going to be the difference between this team winning a World Series or getting knocked out in the wild card round. And Aaron Nola is on a contract year. Like, this is it. This could be the last time we see him pitch in Philadelphia, during this playoff run. He's got a lot on the line. We're talking $100 million potentially, whether he's going to get 200 plus or 100 something. We're talking $100 million on the line for Aaron Nola over the next month or so. Aaron Nola to me is the wild card of this playoff run. What do you think of that?
Yeah, because Rob Thompson has said that he's his guy. He's his number two. I've questioned whether or not Nola's head has been in the game at all this season. He has been adversely affected by this pitch clock, and he hasn't been able to get over
and the contract situation not working out before the season.
Yeah, he's given up how many homers this year? His ERA is like 4.5. Like he's due for a meltdown inning. Like when you're watching those games, you're waiting for that inning, and it shouldn't be like that. Now, he pitched very well the other night to clinch it. He's had
32 home runs in 32 starts.
That's
think about that. He's got a 4.46 ERA. He's led the team in innings pitched at 193 and 2/3 innings. Obviously, he struck out 202 guys again. Didn't walk a lot of batters again, more than normal for him, but not many. But those 32 home runs in 32 games, that's a lot of home runs to give up over the course of the season.
I'm curious to see how many runs he gives up in the first inning too. We seem to always be behind the 8 ball when he's pitching. Big Ed thinks he's going to show up in the playoffs. God, I hope so.
He showed up in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. He didn't fall apart last year for the World Series.
But he's got a lot of miles on that arm this season. And Rob Thompson, now he's got a full year under his belt. He's got, I believe, his pitchers in place on what he wants to do. I think last year, with some of the moves he was making in some of the games in the playoffs, I think he got nervous and started doing things that maybe he shouldn't have done. I hope he learned from those lessons. How quick of a trigger do you think he'll have? How quick of a trigger do you think he'll have? Someone like Aaron Nola, say it's the 3rd inning, he's up to 62 pitches, it's a 2-1 ball game. You can tell he's not got his best stuff, but he's still got us, in the game. We don't have the bullpen's weird. It's deep, the bullpen, but there's a lot of question marks in the bullpen. So much so though that you don't need Ranger Suarez. Like last year, Ranger Suarez in the playoffs was starting games and coming out of the pen in the same series, every round. You don't need that. Ranger Suarez is probably your number 3 starter, even though he's been sketchy. But you got a lot of arms, and you're probably going to have 9 bullpen arms available on any given night. Whether it's Aaron Nola or Ranger Suarez, do you think that trigger is going to be really quick this time? I think he's got a sense when he doesn't have his stuff and know that he can go to a Jeff Hoffman, or he can go to, and he's been sketchy, but he also pitched the first 2 games of his Phillies career phenomenal. So it's in his arsenal, Michael Lorenzen.
Yeah.
And listen, Sanchez. He's not going to start any of these games, but
No.
long relief. Hey, Nola doesn't have it. I got to pull him, and Sanchez comes in for 3 innings. And that's one of the luxuries you have in short series where not all of your starters are going to actually be pitching. You can get a little bit creative there, and I think they will. And then you got this wild card, this Orion Kirker. How do you pronounce that last name?
You're asking me?
Kirkering?
You missed me trying to pronounce Albert O on the morning show's name, and you
geez.
want me to pronounce Orion Kirkering? I don't know.
Orion
I have no
Kirkering.
clue.
So he's what, 22 years old.
Yeah.
He's got
have the Phillies ever called up both minor league player pitchers? Have they? I don't know.
Listen, Marty Bystrom was called up in September of 80, and he made the playoff roster. He went 5-0 in September.
Kyle and I were just born in 1980, so we don't really remember the ins and outs of that year.
And they used and you talk about using like all your bullets to get to the next series. The Phillies used all their bullets in 80. Marty Bystrom started game 1 of the 1980 World Series. Talk about pressure. So
Kirkering. Yeah, I'll still mess it up.
Yeah, I'll still mess it up too. I
don't know. When I said Albert O, when I said his name the first time, I accidentally said Aqua Bowman. And now I've not let that down. No one lets me forget that. I can't say names. I still can't say OZ's name yet with the Phillies or with the Eagles. But look, the pitching is deep in the bullpen. There are a lot of options. Where do Rob Thompson showed in the playoffs last year, and I think he'll do it again this year, that there's no set closer. It's not always going to be ninth inning. It's going to be the high leverage situations. How high of a leverage situation can you trust with Craig Kimbrell? And we've talked about this on Twitter and through text messages a lot. Craig Kimbrell, I mean, think about it. He's pitched in more games than anybody else in the Phillies. That's on Rob Thompson, burning him out to an extent. Like, you wanted to ride him as long as you could, but you rode him so long. Now you're here on the cusp of October, and the guy might be washed. Can you trust him in a 1-run game in the 8th inning when it's a 1-1 series? Can you trust him in game 4 when you're down 2-1 in the 7th inning with a 2-run lead? Can you? And you kind of have to, but as a fan, you can't be confident.
With a 1-run lead, I'd be really, really nervous because listen, look at his whole book of business this year, and he was prone to give up base runners or big home runs. He'd shake it off and get the save, but like the stakes are much higher now, and like I can't afford in a 1-run game having Kimbrell come in and get base runners on against a hot hitting Arizona team or the lineup that is the Braves. But so again, like it's up to Rob to put these guys in positions to succeed. And are you going to go with has always worked because that's what these players are expecting? Or are you going to think outside the box and maybe hurt some egos? Hey, Kimbrell, you're not pitching tonight. We're going with somebody else. We're going with Hoffman.
It's what's crazy is the guys that have the best numbers are the Hoffmans of the world. You know what I mean? The Stroms of the world. The Alvarado, he has good numbers, but he's been a little up and down with the injury this year. Sir Anthony's never figured it out this year. Kimbrell, we just talked about. Soto, he's been hot and cold all year long. There's a lot of guys that have the stuff to be high leverage players in a bullpen game like this or in the bullpen in the playoffs, but on the flip side of the equation, haven't been consistent enough lately where, I mean, I'm telling you, from the 6th inning on, every single game of these playoffs, my hands are going to be shaky. Whether we got a 3-run lead or we're down 3.
A nervous wreck.
Because there is no consistency of success. How we've won 89 games is beyond me because of the lack of consistency out of the bullpen and the starting pitching.
They blew a lot of games. They've also come back, and I think they've had 44 comeback wins.
Statistician, look that up for me.
What's that?
I'm asking the statistician, Kyle, to double check that number.
Yeah, check that number, Kyle. Get back to us on that.
That's a lot of comebacks.
44. And not the shift, but the shift this lineup is raking, man. I
Yeah.
mean, last night they had and listen, it was the Pirates. They were down 5-0. They had their B team in, and they came back and won 7-6. Garrett
Stubbs with the big home run, still drunk, hitting a bomb.
Drunk. He had a monster shot. It was a 3-run homer. And
can I get on a side note? I want to ask a question. No, I put it on Twitter. No one responded. Probably because half of Twitter doesn't even know who I mentioned. Is Garrett Stubbs the coolest backup catcher since Todd Pratt?
Probably.
I mean, Todd Pratt was a cool dude when I was growing up. I love Todd Pratt. He had such a personality.
Todd Pratt had 2 stints with us. He also played for the Mets. He was on the Mets World Series team in 2000.
Kyle confirming 44 comeback wins.
The official statistician. There you go. Yeah.
Second in comeback.
They're second in comeback wins. So, I mean, like, I don't have a lot of doubt of the lineup because everybody is hitting. If you're not hitting, Rob is moving those guys down the lineup until you do start hitting. So I come the playoffs, like, they're not going to sit Stout with a left-hander. No. Although we haven't seen much of Marsh lately. He's been going with different lineups. I'd like to see Marsh in the lineup a little bit more.
And I think come playoff time, I think you will see Marsh. You'll see Marsh in left field, in my opinion, every single night. And let's stick to that. Are you confident with going with Bryce? Like it's during the regular season, because you're playing at 5-6 nights a week. Bryce Harper's DH some. He's played first base some. They've been kind of building that, first base with him. I would assume that if they play 10 or 12 or 15 or 20 playoff games, that Bryce Harper's going to be at first base every single night throughout the playoffs. And Kyle Schwarber DHing, right?
I think they have to be. And I think that plays into their long-term planning here, which is why Harper, now we're realizing it, that's why Harper wasn't playing every day in the field. He's only played about a third of his games in the field. Probably saving him for this moment now. And Bryce, we need you at first. And speaking of first baseman, I do think you're going to see Hoskins on the roster as soon as he's ready to go. He's probably
Rob Thompson said this afternoon that he doubts he'll be ready before the World Series. But if he is ready, he will only be used in a pinch hitting situation. He would not be used as the DH or anything like that. But there is a chance for the World Series that Rhys Hoskins will be back. I put it out there on Twitter tonight. I said, what kind of a storybook ending would it be? Bottom of the ninth, World Series clincher game. Rhys Hoskins steps up to the plate after not playing all year long and hits like a walk-off home run. Wouldn't that be like the perfect storybook ending? Like, you can make a movie out of that, could you not?
Probably, yeah. And he's traveled with the team all season. He's been in the clubhouse. He's got his finger on the pulse of what's going on. Well, Kyle, that's a great point, and I mentioned that earlier. How many times has guys like, even like Wheeler, like given up like runs that, God, can you get through one inning without having like a 4-run inning that you have to come back to? Or like, can we get a couple runs on the board before you give up a 1 or 2? That's been frustrating all year. But what was I saying about Hoskins?
Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah, so he's been with the team all year, and there was some slander of him on the Twitter that people were pissed that he was celebrating with the team, and he's dude, really?
Everybody talks about homegrown talent. He is one of the few homegrown talented kids on this team. He's been here for a long, long time. Let him celebrate. Anybody that thinks he shouldn't be out there celebrating is just flat grumpy. Plain and simple.
I would love to be in that locker room and celebrate. I'm going to find a way to get a press pass and get in there. See if you can do something, Phil. Maybe go deliver some pizzas down there or something.
Yeah. I'll deliver pizzas to the Braves or the Diamondbacks, too. I don't really care. I'll deliver pizzas to anybody for the right price at this point. Because I remember, was it the Eagles? Was somebody visiting the Eagles last year, or was it the Phillies somebody was visiting? And they called a pizza shop and ordered like 50 pizzas, and the pizza shop said, no, we won't deliver to the visiting clubhouse. Yes. I forget who it was, but, me as a business owner, I absolutely I'd be delivering to them without a shadow of a doubt.
That check will clear pretty quick, too, man. They have deep pockets.
Absolutely. Mike saying fans like that are the clowns that give us true Philly fans a bad rep. Yeah, to an extent, that is true. There's a lot of things that give us a bad rep, and a lot of it's unnecessarily a bad rep, Mike. But yeah, I mean, you're just hating to hate. You're just looking to be negative, saying that Reese Hoskins should not be celebrating with this team. There's no room for that. No reason for that whatsoever.
The other heat too that we got is, why are you celebrating a playoff clincher? Well, that's what
Why not?
baseball does. That's what
Yeah,
baseball does.
it's a
The Brewers,
162 damn game season.
yeah, yeah. Now, if you want to talk about if they win each series and they have a champagne bath after each
Yeah.
series again, I'm not sure I agree with that.
Like the one
But
game playoff series, the one game play in for the last two wild card spots. Like I've seen people celebrate that. Yeah, maybe you don't need to do that. I could see celebrating the NLCS, obviously winning the pennant's a big deal, and the World Series. But once you clinch a playoff spot, you absolutely celebrate that. It doesn't come
so
around that often.
again, segueing from the
Here it is.
celebration.
It was the
Yeah.
Phillies. It was Angelo's would not deliver to the Astros. Screw that. If the
And,
Astros come back to Philly in the World Series, my phone number at the pizza shop is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Give me a call. I will deliver without a shadow of a doubt to you. No problem. I actually just recently got my first. I don't know how they got my number. The Wilmington the Blue Rocks or whatever they are
yes.
in
Mhm.
Wilmington. Whoever the visiting team was, this was like a month ago. Found my pizza shop, and I'm 30 minutes away from the stadium, and they ordered like $400 worth of food for the visiting team. Like no problem. I'll deliver that down there. No problem at all.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
He's still leading despite not playing. He's one of the catalysts. Might be his last in red pinstripes. He should soak it up. I absolutely agree with you, Mike. And I don't really want to dive too deep into whether him and Nola will be here next year. I hate looking into the future when we're on the cusp of a playoff run. But yeah, it might be his last time. So, and if Bryce Harper stays at first base long term, which I doubt he does, that gives you less reason to keep Reese Hoskins anyway.
well, let me just throw a couple things out for you here,
Mhm.
tied into celebration and futures and things like that. I don't know if you noticed, I watched a lot of the celebration, if not all of it.
Mhm.
Harper was not in that locker room for most of it. First of all, he doesn't drink or smoke. He's a Mormon, and he was out on the field with his family and kids. And when he was interviewed, he was pretty serious with the interview. Nick Castellanos was in the locker room, but
Mhm.
he was also, he gave off a vibe of like, hey, have your fun now, but we got a lot of work to do.
Mhm. I
And I don't know if we had that last year, but you have like your two team leaders are pretty much saying that we're not finished yet.
Yep.
The other thing you want to talk about, what does the future hold and who plays what positions? Nick Castellanos is a Gold Glove level player this year. He had
Absolutely.
zero errors. He made that spectacular foul ball catch and throw out at the plate. He's made
We would be crushing him if that throw was a little wide. If that runner dove
it
or
was
slid a
right in
second
the money,
sooner.
man.
Yeah.
I mean, like
The
they were.
decision making there was but that goes to his confidence in what he's capable of doing.
Well, Castellanos was signed to be a DH. He wasn't
Mhm.
signed to be an outfielder.
Yep.
And he's performed admirably in right field. I mean,
Admirably, a lot better than admirably.
he had two huge catches in the playoffs last year. One against the Astros, one against the Braves. I mean, he's had a really, really good season. I would be pining for him for not only Gold Glove but Silver Slugger. He's had a really, really nice season. Comeback Player of the Year.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah, it's funny. I bet Nick Castellanos MVP to start the season. Like it was like 100 to 1 or 105 to 1. I put $5 down to win over $500, and everybody told me I was completely insane for making. And he's not going to win the MVP, obviously.
no.
But does it sound completely insane that he's in the conversation of top 10 MVP voting this year?
I get,
You know,
and I tweeted that out that he's probably going to get some
secondary votes.
serious consideration, but he's going to get votes. He's going to
Yeah,
get some votes
absolutely.
for that.
I mean, and to see where he was last year to where he went this year, it just goes to show sometimes it takes an adjustment period to two things. One, getting a big contract, and two, playing in Philadelphia. Sometimes it just takes a little time. You look at Trey Turner, and we could spend some time talking about Trey Turner and his turnaround this season. Obviously, everyone saw him in the World Baseball Classic and in previous seasons in baseball. They're expecting Captain America here to come to Philadelphia. And he struggled massively on the weight of signing a $300 million contract and coming to Philadelphia. Even with friends like Bryce Harper already in the locker room, it was tough for him. And then I want to know what your thoughts are on the standing ovation. Mike said earlier about the things that give us, a bad rap. Well, the things that we did for Trey Turner, that should give us a good rep because we embraced him. We said, we see you fighting hard every night to try to get better. We know what you're capable of. Let's give you a standing O. And he's been one of the best players in baseball since that standing ovation.
Since August 1st, I think he's batting like 328.
Yeah.
His OPS is like 1.2 or something like that. Something insane. And the one thing he is struggling and continues to struggle is playing the field, which is a little bit of an anomaly. He's always been a pretty solid shortstop. He's been terrible in the field this year. And I don't know what it is. New team, struggling at the plate and just having everything collapse at once on him. Can't have him botching plays in the playoffs.
No. But here's the thing. Trey Turner, who we saw in the World Baseball Classic, who we saw in the playoffs in years past for other teams, the way he's played this last month and a half of the season, would it surprise? I said Aaron Nola is the wild card for the pitching staff and for this team. Would it surprise you if Trey Turner put up World Baseball Classic type performances in the playoffs? Because it wouldn't surprise me because he's got one of those clutch genes, just like Bryce Harper, with a knack for coming up big in big moments.
Yeah, I'm curious to see under the spotlight how he performs. I mean, like he was money in that World Baseball Classic, so it'd be really interesting if he bookends. Oh, you hear him, Dad? The dog barking. I'm curious to him bookend the seasons with just phenomenal showings when it counts the most. And he's already got his confidence built back. I mean, he was batting 270 and dropped down a little bit now. He's at 263, but his numbers are way up. He was approaching OPS at 800. He's at 770 now.
Who would have thought? I mean, he was under 600.
He was under 7. He was under 700.
He was low 600s. He might have crossed even. He was really, really unplayable at a point this year. There were a lot of guys on this team. JT Realmuto is another one. I mean, I know he's got over 20 home runs. He hasn't been JT Realmuto, best catcher in baseball all year long. He seems to be, leveling out and getting back to it. But, they're considering that we're at 89 wins with 3.5 games to play. We are losing now tonight, 3-1. So, 90, 91 wins, whatever we have, with Trey Turner playing the way he has, Bryce Harper missing the time. We'll get to him more in a minute. JT playing poorly. Kyle Schwarber playing poorly. Like, it really goes to show how deep this team is that we can have this many wins with so many people having off seasons. Like, this is – I wanted to bring him up at some point, but this is Dave Dombrowski's doing, this team. I mean, Dave Dombrowski's now gotten this team to the playoffs 2 years in a row, first time since 10 and 11, and he has built a team that when players are having bad struggles, there's so much talent on this team, we can continue to win.
Listen, Dave Dombrowski has done this at multiple places.
Yeah.
He honestly,
Boston, Detroit. Was there another team?
Was it
Detroit?
Miami?
Was he in Miami? I think he was with 3 teams. I can't remember who the 3 teams were, but it was Boston and Detroit for sure that he made these type of turnarounds for the organization.
He's a Hall of Fame type general manager, and I applaud John Middleton for hiring him and getting rid of Klentak and McPhail because he had the wrong people in the leadership roles, and it was really showing. Dombrowski knows what he's doing, and I'm curious if he could take us to the promised land with all these moves that he has made. I think I
almost want to compare it to when we had Pat Gillick here. And he took over in 06 or 07. 07, we got to the playoffs, didn't complete the deal. Then 08, the second year in a row, making the playoffs. and then Pat Gillick retired after that. I'm not
Mhm.
saying Dave Dombrowski will retire after this year, but I'm saying like it took 2 years of winning for the Phillies in that early run with Pat Gillick to get over the hump. Dave Dombrowski is right there with Pat Gillick as one of the best, presidents, GMs in baseball history for what
Mhm.
he's been able to do.
He's one of Paul Owens was one,
Mhm.
Gillick, um,
Who was the GM? Well, it was Gillick was the GM of the Blue Jays, right? During
he
their
was.
run
Mhm.
in the early '90s. So yeah, so Gillick
So
had that
like
run on his belt as well.
he's in good company there. Like there's not a lot of success stories of GMs here in Philadelphia.
We got
And
Daryl Morey. That's a success story right there.
well, that's Sixers are for another day. That thing, if nothing happens soon there, and I know we're talking Phillies,
Uh,
like something like it's not going to be good. Training camp is opening up soon. We're curious to see
Monday's first practice. Sunday is media availability. Monday is first practice. Out there, Nick Nurse has got them going out to Colorado for the hot mile high air to build their endurance. All right, let's get off that.
Yeah.
You mentioned another name. We'll get back to the players on the field in a minute. But you mentioned another name there when we were talking about Dave Dombrowski, and that's John Middleton. And we give a lot of praise in this city to Jeffrey Lurie. We give a lot of crap to Josh Harrison with the Sixers. John Middleton does not get enough credit for how he's changed the culture and the presentation of this organization. It might not be Eagles level gold standard organization yet, but it is definitely trending in that direction. John Middleton he's a billionaire out there rubbing elbows with the kids, with the fans, sitting in the stands, just doing everything to, change the perception and image of this baseball team. And I don't think John Middleton gets enough credit for the last 3 or 4 years and how he's turned the tides of the Phillies in this city.
I think he's a tremendous owner, and you have to understand what has he done.
Mm-hmm.
This team, I'm going back years now. Again, it was owned by Ruley Carpenter and his dad,
Mm-hmm.
and it just got too much for that family to handle. They had to sell, and Bill Giles created an ownership group. That unfortunately, that ownership group was more concerned about making sure that they turned a profit every year than actually putting a winning product on the field. And you had the Buck brothers, Claire Betts, and all these other hidden figures. Like there was never Bill Giles was always kind of the face of the ownership, and later on it was Dave Montgomery. But part of that group eventually was John Middleton, and John Middleton worked extremely hard to wrestle the ownership away from these other folks so he can get primary decision making and whatnot. And I believe he just added somebody to
He did.
yeah.
Right around the trade deadline. That's why, I was spending some time talking about that he added a new owner to bring fresh money and to bring Ohtani to Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, I mean, but
It might be Mike Trout, but it might be Ohtani,
He's in it for the right reason as an owner.
Yeah.
Like, listen, he wants to turn a profit. I get it, but he wants to win. I don't.
Jeffrey Lurie wants to turn a profit too, but Jeffrey Lurie cares about the image of the team, and John Middleton cares about the image of this team. He wants them to be on the back page of the Delaware. Does the Delaware County Times still have? Does it still exist? I don't even know. But he wants to be on the back. He wants to be on the back cover with the Eagles. He doesn't want to be on the third sports page. He wants to be on the main page, and he's done a tremendous job changing the culture of the team, but also changing the image and perception of this team in the city. Where you said it a million times. This is a baseball city when the Phillies are good, and with other ownership, you might not have the same reaction of this team going to the playoffs as we do right now. And I put a lot of credit on John Middleton, and he doesn't get that credit nearly enough. Not at all.
The guy was in the stands throwing baseballs to everybody. Yeah. He was walking
around.
To
walk the railing. He almost fell. Dude's old. He's going to break a hip.
No, he's in it for the right reasons. And he's allowing his people to do what they're supposed to do. A Dombrowski, a Bryce Harper, a Rob Thompson. He definitely has his finger on the pulse of what's going on, but he's not like a Jerry Jones, you know. And
Jeffrey Lurie has more input in what's day-to-day operations than John Middleton.
Yeah, and that's something I think the Phillies lacked for a generation and a half that we finally got back. I mean, the Carpenters, when they owned the team in the 70s and 80s, I mean, that was the Phillies' heyday, and they brought a World Series here, and then all went to shit after they sold. I mean, they just couldn't keep up with the economics of the game anymore. And you know,
that beautiful,
get over that hump.
Stadium.
Yeah, you know, they were very good owners. They were very good people. But again, like they had to going back. They had to get PHL 17 to front the money to get Pete Rose signed as a free agent because they didn't have it in their coffers. But it was a different.
I've never heard that story before.
Yeah, look it up. They needed to, and I think they put rules in place. You couldn't do that anymore.
PHL 17, is that the channel that got demoted and merged with CW?
It may be, yes.
It is. I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry, Jason Lee. You know, he should still be on the air there. There's other shows still on the air. Jason Lee should still be on the air with that show.
I agree. I enjoyed that show. I enjoyed
it because he put me on the air a few times, but that's another whole subject for another day.
I heard the ratings went really down when you were on.
The show got canceled as soon as I was on for a second time. I mean, that's all that needs to be said right there. Adam, how you doing, man? I hope you're well. I hope you're ready for Red October. We sure are here. Real quick, let's get back to the team as we get ready to make some predictions about this playoffs. Bryce Harper's the last guy I want to cover individually speaking. And I think he gets a lot of credit for being such a monster and a cyborg for coming back. But even all the attention he gets for coming back so quickly, I don't think is enough for how great and how miraculous and how determined he was to come back so quickly. The fact that he's going to play close to 130 games this year, considering his injury, I mean, damn, that's amazing, is it not? I mean, he needs even more credit than he already is getting for this.
Remember, we didn't think he was going to come back until the All-Star
break.
Yeah, he came back in May, and
yeah, we saw this. He didn't get elected; he got ejected. I see. Yeah. Although I think he would win governor of Pennsylvania if he ran. He'd definitely win mayor of Philadelphia.
He's immensely popular. You know, they say that he panders. I don't know if he does. I think he really likes being here.
I do too.
I think he really is bought into the culture. The other night he had Eagle socks on, and then he's got that Fanatic bandana. He said he loves it. His kids love the Fanatic.
Got an interesting question. So you say he loves it being here, and I was going to say that's why he asked for a no trade clause when he signed the contract, but he didn't know he was going to love it that much. Do you think when he's like, I want a no trade clause, and then he's, I don't know, it's Philadelphia, and then he got here and he's like, no, I'm glad I put that no trade clause. Do you think he was really, truly as, you know, was it more of a contract negotiation thing at first, and now it's because he really wants to be here? Or do you think right from the get-go he knew what he was getting into here, and he knew he would love it here?
Man, I don't know.
I mean, it's just that just popped into my head just now.
Here's the one thing. I think he was looking for a certain something. Okay. Remember, his teammate was Jason Worth, and he consulted with Jason Worth during his free agent as he was making the tour. And by all accounts, Jason Worth sold him on the city of Philadelphia and the Phillies organization. At the end of the day, my understanding, how I've read it, and then what I've seen is that was the tipping point for him to decide to come here versus the West Coast or wherever else, where he was going to sign. Where was he going to sign? Was it the Angels or the Dodgers? I don't remember.
The
Padres. I know were in the running.
Yeah, I know. We won that deal by getting Harper over Manny Machado. He could have waived the clause, but I think he knew what kind of city Philly is, and he wanted to be somewhere stable. And that's it. He wanted somewhere stable to be with his family, for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. And Adam's saying it had to be a bummer when he came here and the Nationals won the next year. Yeah, that had to hurt a little bit, but I don't think it was a bummer to Bryce. I think it was added motivation. I think Bryce Harper's got a little bit of that Jalen Hurts, Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality in him, for sure.
Yeah, I honestly, and again, maybe I'm a homer or not. I think he's the best player in baseball
Yeah.
because of what he does on the field, the sacrifices that he's made,
Hmm.
um, and the just the leadership piece. Like
Hmm.
he's again, all things equal. Like Machado, you put Machado against Harper, and their numbers will look similar. Machado is a weak person, a weak leader.
Absolutely.
That clubhouse is in absolute turmoil, and there's nobody knows who the leader is, and nobody is able to take control of it. And that's what was their demise this year, the
Hmm.
Padres. Could you picture if we chose Machado over Harper? Or even if we had Machado and Harper on the team, there would be some infighting.
Hmm.
By all accounts, this team is really tight. I mean, like really, really
Yeah.
tight.
Does
And
Bryce? We talked about Nick Castellanos getting some secondary votes for MVP. Does Bryce Harper get MVP votes? I mean, think about it. He's played 125-ish games. He's got over 20 homers, over 70 RBIs. He struggled with power and run producing early when he came back. He was getting singles and whatnot. He wasn't really driving the ball at first. He's got over 900 OPS and almost wins above replacement. I mean, to me, I know he's only played 120 some games, and those aren't MVP esque numbers that you would think, but he might be the MVP of this team right now.
he might get a few votes. Um, I think the team has really like three MVPs. I think that's Schwarber, Castellanos, and Harper.
You think Schwarber?
Um,
Okay.
um, Kyle does a lot, man, and and
Yeah.
and they lean on him too as a leader on this team.
Absolutely. I was
Uh,
just going to say that he is one of the bigger leaders. You see that, and I crush Rob Thompson. I crush Kyle Schwarber leading off all the time, but he does lead, and he leads by example. You can't take that away from him at all. Philly should have signed both Harper and Machado. Rob Thompson wanted to spend, or not Rob Thompson. John Milton wanted to spend stupid money. Ended up signing Trey Turner anyway. They both similar. I mean, Trey Turner's got a different mentality than Manny Machado. Mista. I think if Manny Machado struggled in Philly like Trey Turner did, it wouldn't have been so simple of a standing ovation to turn him around because he doesn't have that same determination, drive, Mamba mentality, whatever you want to call it. I
I,
don't think Manny Machado has that.
I yeah, I don't think Manny Machado is wired for pressure. I mean, if you remember, he was traded by the Orioles at the trade deadline to the Dodgers, and they made the playoffs that year, and he was kind of loafing it out there. And if you remember, he was running down the line just blowing bubbles with his
I
chewing
remember that.
gum. It was not a good vibe, and it tells a little bit something about a person on whether or not are they really bought in, or are they really the guy. Does he have it in his belly to be a leader and be a winner? And I don't think he is. Bryce, honestly, I have reservations about Bryce too. I
You
wasn't
did?
sure about him from a leader standpoint and performance, and what was he really in this for? Did he really want to come here to make a difference and win, or did he want just a big payday? And I read the guy wrong. I mean, he is everything that I thought he was. He isn't, and I we're very lucky to have him in this city, and
We
we're
are.
very lucky to have him for as long as we do. But I think he's in year 5 with us right now. That contract is really
2019 is when he signed it.
19, 20, 21, 22, 23. We're in year 5 of a
Yeah.
13-year contract. We're getting we're more than a third of the way. So I
Yeah.
think as time goes on, if they can't seal the deal, like there's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure on Bryce to do something, man.
Mhm.
Like you got to will this team to a
Yeah.
victory. We can't go 13 years without a World Series.
Well,
And I'm
it
not
starts
asking
this.
for a
It
lot.
starts next week. It starts next week, right? This is last year we made the World Series, came up short, just like the Eagles came up short, the Union came up short, but the Phillies are back in the playoffs again, first time back to back years since 10 and 11. And like I said at the start of the show, this team is better on paper than last year's team. So the first thing is before we get to how far they can get, there are 3 or 4 wild card teams still in the mix to be in the wild card with the Phillies. I'm going to go over it real quick. So the Diamondbacks are the number 2 wild card team right now. You got the Marlins and the Cubs tied for the last wild card spot, and the Reds and Padres are technically still alive. The Reds are a game and a half out. That's pretty slim. The Padres are 3.5 games out. So we could pretty much eliminate the Padres. The Reds, it's really, really outside chance. It's really Diamondbacks, Marlins, and Cubs. 2 of those 3 teams make it. Who is the team you want to least face out of those 3 teams?
Geez, I don't know.
All right. While you think about it, I'm going to give you my answer. All right.
Give me your answer.
All right. I'm going to say the Cubs. The Cubs are not the most talented of those 3 teams, but the Cubs are eerily similar to the Phillies last year. They were really bad in the first half of the season. After the All-Star break, they had like a 10-game winning streak. They went on a 14 out of 16 game. Like they literally climbed from, I think they were like 8 or 10 games below 500 at one point this year. And they have climbed back into contention. And they're going to, if they make it, that means they make it on one of the last nights of the year. They backdoor in on the last game or last 2 games of the year, just like the Phillies last year. And they are a team, if they make the playoffs, they're the type of team that has nothing to lose. They weren't supposed to be here. They get in. That makes them a dangerous team. They remind me their season trajectory. I don't care about any of the players specifically. Their season trajectory is eerily similar to the Phillies last year. That scares me. That is why I don't want to face the Cubs. Nobody thought we were going to beat the Padres last year in the wild card round, did they? But we did because we got hot at the right moment. That is the Cubs right now. So that's why I want to avoid the Cubs. I know it's not an X's and O's type reason. It's just that gut feeling that when you get hot at the right moment, that kind of a team is very scary in the playoffs.
Now, we haven't seen them, and I do agree with a lot of what you said. We haven't seen them since June. We went.
They were a bad team. They were a bad team in June.
We went 5-1 against them, and in Arizona. Let me see. I'm pulling that up. 1, 2, 3, 4. We went 4-3 against Arizona.
Arizona's the better team on paper for sure.
Yeah. We shit the bed against Atlanta, but we finished strong against them the last series. Who else did you say? Miami?
Miami actually
is trouble with them.
Miami's actually got a better percentage chance of making the playoffs than the Cubs right now. Most likely, it's like 98% Diamondbacks make it, 70% Miami, and like 30% Cubs. So it's really, really outside chance as the Cubs, but the Cubs scare me because they I don't want them playing down to the competition level, and I think they'll play better and be more fired up. Mr. saying Phillies struggle against teams with great pitching staffs. Phillies can slug it out with anybody. Actually, I kind of feel like the Phillies struggle against the unknown pitchers and the unknown pitching staffs. We've struggled against the rookies and the guys with the names that we know. The Phillies have never never really struggled as much with. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Who would you be most fearful of in that wild card round?
I would probably say Miami. And then the reason why I say that is because, number one, it looks like they have a losing record against them this year, number one. Number two, they're a divisional opponent. They know us in and out.
Which we know them in and out as well.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if we've just had bad experience against the Marlins when it counted the most in recent seasons.
Unless Jamie Moyer was on the mound.
Yeah. We did knock around their pitcher.
Andy Alcantara.
Yeah, we've been knocking them around the past couple seasons. You make great points with the Cubs. I mean, we've shellacked them this year. Arizona, you got Zach Gallen as their top starter.
One of the best. I would really be fearful of a Zach Gallen, Zach Wheeler first game matchup because Gallen is heads and shoulders better overall than Wheeler. But, I wouldn't worry about us putting up enough runs if we fall behind. It's just the momentum thing to me. The momentum thing is so key. And the Cubs, they haven't been as great at the end of the season. Also, similar. The Phillies got hot in June and July last year. And then at the end of the season, they faltered and got in at the last second. The Cubs were hot in July, climbed the standings really fast. And then all of a sudden, kind of leveled out here at the end of the season. They get in. They're going to feel it. they're going to celebrate on Saturday night that they clinched their playoff spot, and then chill out on Sunday, and then Tuesday be ready for the playoffs. So it's just scary to me, that kind of a situation.
The Cubs have former Philly Drew Smiley as their third starter.
There have been a couple former Phillies that have pitched well. Smiley, Moore.
Kyle Gibson had a real good year.
Who?
Kyle Gibson for the Orioles had a good year.
Neris had a 1.3 ERA this year for the Houston Astros.
And I've seen online they're saying we should think about signing Neris next year as a free agent. I don't want anything to do with that guy.
I have no problem with Hector Neris. Hector Neris was a very underappreciated pitcher for this team. During a downtime in our city with this team, he was very, very underappreciated. These teams need to use their starting pitchers to get to the playoffs. It's a great point for Ed. We can rest our guys going forward. I don't know how many innings. Let me pull up tonight's box score. I don't know how much Zach. Let's see what Zach Wheeler went tonight. He went 4 innings, gave up 1 run. It was Matt Strahm that gave up the 2 runs that blew the lead tonight. So yeah, I mean, we're resting our guys. I mean, Aaron Nola is still technically listed to pitch on Sunday, but I guarantee they're not pitching Aaron Nola on Sunday.
He ain't going to pitch on Sunday.
Yeah, not a chance. All right, so we get through whoever it is: Diamondbacks, Cubs, Marlins, maybe the Reds. According to ESPN's metrics, the Padres have a 0.1% chance of making it still. Just whoever it is. We get past them, and then we get into the next round. Probably against the Braves, maybe the Brewers. What's your long-term out?
The Brewers.
I want to know what your long-term outlook, how confident you are that we can go through the Brewers, go through the Braves, go through any team that's put in front of us and make it back to the World Series. Because we can say we think they're going to win the World Series, but it's a long way away. There's 9 more wins that they need to get before they get there.
They have to do what they did last season, Phil, because they're going to be they're not going to have home field advantage after the wild card round. So they got to.
Did I read it? Hold on. Did I read it right? That wins still matter right now because in baseball they actually reseed. Because I read somewhere that we could still have a better record than the Brewers because we have the exact same wins right now. That if we face the Brewers in some point of the playoffs, I guess the NLCS, that we would actually get the home field advantage if we had the better record. I didn't think baseball reseeded like that, but maybe they do.
I don't know.
Statistician, if you're still watching, let me know. No, he's saying no, they're not reseeding. I read I didn't fact check it. I just saw somebody tweet that out. I guess not every reporter does very good research when they write their articles. So we know how Philadelphia reporters are with doing research on their articles. All right, so confidence meter, Mark, as we get close to an hour here. Trending in the AM, in the PM. Make sure you hit the like button on this video, whether you're watching on replay or live. 11 likes on YouTube, 5 on Facebook, 4 and an angry face on Facebook. Make sure you hit the like button. It's free to do. Confidence meter, how far this Phillies team goes.
I think they can go very far. I think they can find their way in the World Series again. I honest to God, Phil, I looks like they might lose tonight, but I don't think they're going to lose a game at home in the playoffs. I can't see it happening. I mean, that crowd they're already in playoff mode, and there are teams and players on record that have said that they don't want to come into this building to play. I think it's pretty clear the Braves aren't looking forward to us in the. I agree, Big Ed, that I don't think they want to play the Phillies. Do you think
there's any revenge factor from the Braves?
Does
the revenge factor? We don't have a target on our back like the Eagles do, but to an extent, everybody wants to knock the Phillies off because we're the National League champions, just like the Eagles are the NL or the NFC champions. Everybody wants to knock us off. We're the champs till we're not the champs anymore. So maybe there's a little revenge factor, a little motivation there.
See, if they get by the wild card round, and I think they do. I think they do. The Braves, if we split in Atlanta, that's a huge problem for them because now they're back on what happened last year. You're going to come into this building for 2 games. All we need to do is win 2 games. It's a short series. It's not a 7-game series. I think if that was a 7-game series, I think the outcome could have been a lot different last season. It's a short series, and anything can happen in a short series. And you shift the home field advantage to us. All we got to do is win 1. That's going to be a big problem with the Braves having them overcome and trying to split here when the stakes are as high as they are. And you got their players on record saying that they don't want to play here, man. So, and I think if they were to get to the NLCS, you got either the Dodgers or Brewers. In most. I mean, I don't know much about either of those teams. I know Mookie Betts is having an MVP type season. Freddie Freeman has like 60 doubles. No, don't know much about their pitching. I think their pitching is a little off this year for the Dodgers.
They got 98 wins. That's all I know.
Yeah,
it's a lot of wins.
I mean, yeah, I don't. I think the Brewers might pose a bigger problem than the Dodgers for them. And I do think if they get to the NLCS, it's going to be a hell of a lot harder than it was last year against the Padres.
The way I'm seeing this play out is that our biggest adversity is going to be ourselves. And I actually fear the wild card best of 3 series the most because of the unknown. Like if our bullpen has a bad game in the NLCS, it's a best of 7 series. But in the best of 3 series, say we go out in game 1 and win, but then all of a sudden our bullpen, our starter, Aaron Nola doesn't go deep in game 2. Our bullpen gets roughed up. We go through a bunch of pitchers. Then game 3, you've got Ranger Suarez on the mound. Now you've got a spent bullpen. I worry more about the wild card round than the NLDS or the NLCS because I think that gives you more room for error when you get to the second and the third round of the playoffs.
Well,
so it's either losing the first round for me or they're making it back to the World Series. There's no in between for me with this Phillies team.
Well, I think it would be a huge, huge problem if they lost the first game of that series. I think they could be in a lot of trouble.
There's a lot of pressure on Zach Wheeler in that first game.
Yeah, he's got to pitch lights out, and they got to mash, and they got to win handily and put that team, whether it's the Cubs, Miami, or Arizona, on the fence and get them to be desperate and swinging at balls to try to win the game and end up striking out. I think that's where we're going to come into play.
Jeff's saying I think the third wild card could give the Brewers problems, but will lose to the Dodgers. All right. I mean, that's fair. Look, we might not know a lot about the Dodgers right now. But any team that's got 98 wins and an MVP player like Mookie Betts on it and Freddie Freeman, I mean, they're going to be a dangerous team. We for sure. We'll see how that plays out. But I think this team is more adept to win a 7-game series than a 3-game series. So that's just where my gut feeling is right now. Because if Zach Wheeler struggles in game 1, and then Aaron Nola, the wild card, like I said, Aaron Nola to me is the wild card. Round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Aaron Nola is the wild card. If he can come out and pitch well and earn that contract he wants from us or somebody else, Aaron Nola is going to be the difference maker. Aaron Nola and Trey Turner. If I had to pick right now and say we go to the World Series and we had to pick an NLCS MVP, it's going to be Nola and Trey Turner. And that's good. That's going to be the reason why we get there.
Yeah, and to your point, like Trey Turner, bookend, have a great playoff, and I think these guys can really take off. I pulled up like the Dodgers lineup. It is unbelievable. You got Max Muncy.
They've got like a $400 million, $500 million payroll there, and it's not even the highest payroll because the Mets have the highest payroll. And see how far that got the Mets, right?
Max Muncy has 36 homers, 104 RBIs, and he's batting .214. You got Mookie Betts, 39 homers, 40 doubles, 106 RBIs. He's batting .309. His OPS is .998. He's just killing it. Freddie Freeman has 58 doubles, 28 homers, 101 RBIs. his OPS is 979. Like these dudes. JD Martinez is on the team. 31 homers, 98 RBIs.
I didn't even know JD Martinez was still in baseball.
I mean, Jesus Christ, dude! You got Jason Hayward is on the bench for them, and he's got 15 homers. And
I thought he was washed, Hayward. Jeff chiming in, and Jeff, you were a little late to the show, but it's okay. We won't hold it against you, Jeff. Third starter is not Chris Sanchez. Chris Sanchez is going to be used in the bullpen, in my opinion. I know Rob Thompson hasn't named a third starter yet for the first round, but in my opinion, it's going to be Ranger Suarez. And I forget, Jeff, I was reading the article and I was listening to the quotes. It depends on who the matchup in the wild card round is. If it's one team, it's going to be Taijuan Walker in game 3. If it's the other two teams, it's going to be Ranger Suarez. So Chris Sanchez will be used in a bullpen role or a piggyback role if somebody gets bounced early from a game. Chris Sanchez will be used in that role, especially in the first round. Now, if we get to where we need a fourth starter, maybe it could be Sanchez over Taijuan Walker, but it'll probably be Taijuan. We didn't get to talk about it, but I read an interesting article today, Mark, that Taijuan Walker might not pitch in the first round, but even though he struggled, you kind of have to pitch him in the later rounds of the playoffs because he did sign a 4-year contract and he is here for 3 more years. And you kind of got to give the guy that's going to be here long-term over, some of these other guys. You don't want him to get upset that he got benched, in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, I know he should be bigger than that, but on the flip side, you kind of got to give the big dollar guy that opportunity, right?
He did squeeze out 15 wins this year. I mean, he's
just struggled the last 3 or 4 outings. Rob Thompson has led the Phillies to 2 consecutive playoff appearances after a 10-year drought. Is he that good of a manager? Well, you're asking the wrong person, mister, because I'm not a Rob Thompson guy.
I think he's done a phenomenal job this year. I think even better than last year. I think last year, he did great. I mean, obviously he took him to the World Series, but
here's the question. Before you even say that,
listen,
is he going to stay here long term? Because he's next year's the last year of his deal. You never go he signed a 2-year deal, which is so rare in baseball because you don't have a lame duck coach. He was ready to retire. Is this Rob Thompson's last run? Does he retire? Win, lose, or draw? Does he retire at the end of this year?
I think if they win, he will retire to go out on top because he was ready to retire 2 years ago.
Yeah.
If he loses,
to come back on the bench in 2022.
I think if he loses, I think it depends how he loses, whether or not he walks away. I would say that he would fulfill his contract.
I've never heard of a baseball manager playing out the last year of their deal.
Maybe he gets a 1-year extension. See, I mean, he is only 60 years old. I mean, he's not
It's
real
weird
old.
that he wanted to retire. I mean, no offense to other players and all. Yeah, I mean, think about it. Someone like Charlie Manuel was coaching in their 70s. Jim Leland was pushing 80. What was the guy? The guy for the Expos and the Nationals, Frank Robinson. He was like 83 and he was still coaching. So a lot of baseball coaches coach pretty late in their life. And Rob Thompson was ready to call it a career.
Maybe he doesn't want to. I mean, he's given his life to the game, and he wants to go back to Canada and raise sheep. I don't know.
He signed through 2024. I'm 99% sure he only signed for 2 extra years, this year and next year, which was always so weird to me because it's just such an odd thing to do. Jeff, that's just what I remember. That's what I remember. And again, I'm a Rob Thompson hater. So
listen, also
according to Mark, I'm a Rob Thompson hater.
I think he's done a phenomenal job.
He has done a fantastic job.
And the players love him. Yeah, the players love him, which is the most important. He stays the course. He believes in what works. Big
I wish I could retire at 56. Man, I'm going to be working until the day I'm dead.
7 more years of that. I'm looking forward to that.
Dude, I got 13 years if that happened, but the odds are that ain't happening. The pizza business does not make you rich like people think it does. It does not make you rich. Sorry. Okay, but I appreciate you checking in, Jeff. This has been a fantastic show. So, Mark, Phillies win the World Series, yes or no?
Listen, I was
going to wrap that show up really quickly, but then I just put a stickler on you there. And you don't know
Dude,
how to answer it.
my homerism says yes, they shock the world, they get back, and they actually pull it out. And I think they pull it out in deciding fashion. I don't think it's a 7-gamer. I think it could be a 4-game sweep to whomever it is that they play on the other side. And honestly, I haven't dug real deep. I mean, I'd like to see the Orioles. Let them play the Orioles, have a 95 series, and let's get them back from what happened in 83. But, Ryder Cup time, no?
The tea time is 1 a.m. tonight. For the
Jesus,
first tea time,
dude.
1 a.m. tonight. They're playing over in Europe somewhere. I don't even know where. But the first tea time's at like 1:15. I am not pulling an all-nighter, Kyle. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, not. And I'm just going to say this right now because I haven't done a Fairway to Heaven in a while. Team USA is going to win the first Ryder Cup in Europe in like 300 years this year. The Team USA is way better than people realize. Just going to say it's in Italy. Yeah, that's right. I knew it was over there somewhere where I've been before. Justin Thomas, MVP of the Ryder Cup. Just going to call it, Kyle. Haven't done a Fairway to Heaven in a while. That's what it's Paige playing. Big Ed never misses a moment to mention his love of Paige Sporanic, does he? I mean, I think Big Ed might have a slight crush.
Is she even a professional golfer?
She tried. She was big in college. She tried to make it on tour. She just couldn't hack it on the LPGA. She was good enough, but not good enough. So just not quite there. But she's a better golfer than I am. She's a better golfer than you are, without a shadow of a doubt. She's actually got a really good
terrible. Listen, I am a terrible golfer. I'll be the first one to admit that. I've never
big
been
crush.
real good.
I'll just tell you this, Big Ed. My wife has no problem saying, "Yeah, that's a good-looking girl." When one comes across our path, she hates the dancing commercial where she's doing that little dance on the putting green. My wife thinks it's the dumbest thing in the world, Big Ed, just so you know. She makes more money on social media and modeling. She absolutely does, without a shadow of a doubt. She's actually really smart when it comes to talking and handicapping golf tournaments. She is beyond belief smart. She knows her sports in general, inside and out. She's a great Twitter follow because you don't see all the pictures and explicit graphic material. She knows her stuff really, really well. Yeah, I see your comment, K1. Yes, a little. I do host a golf podcast. We're kind of in a little hiatus in the offseason, but I do host a golf podcast, K1.
I'm glad K1 checked in on baseball tonight. We didn't talk any
K1
football.
hates baseball. He literally hates baseball.
He's the guy that wanted me off the damn show when I was talking Phillies.
I had to do.
Come on, K1.
I did an hour and a half show this morning. I did an extended episode this morning, and now I'm on an hour and 15 minutes tonight, and K1 still can't get enough of me. He might hate baseball, but he can't get enough of what I do here, just so you know. All right, Mark, we're going to wrap this up. You didn't answer my question if the Phillies win the World Series or not.
I said they'll shock the world, and they will win the World Series.
So let us have – everybody thought last year was the year the Eagles, the Phillies, the Sixers, they were all going to make the deep run. I'm going to tell you, this is the year that multiple Philadelphia teams win a championship. The Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. The Phillies are going to win the World Series. And shockingly, the Sixers are going to make it out of the second round. You heard it first right here. Now, I didn't say a championship. I just said out of the second round. They do. This is the year in Philadelphia here, starting right now with Red October with this Phillies team.
Let's do it. I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, as Kyle says. I mean, it's a perfect comment to end this show. Ring that MFing bell. Without a shadow of a doubt. All right, everybody. If you're watching this on replay or now, hit that like button. Facebook, YouTube. We got 13 likes on YouTube, 5 on Facebook, 4 and an angry face from what was the dude's name? Michael Price, who left me an angry face. I don't understand that. I'm calling him out again. There's no reason to leave an angry face, but whatever. If you're watching on replay and you drop a comment and your thoughts on this Phillies team, I check all comments. I check on replays. I don't miss any of them. Everybody have a great night. Red October is here. I know October doesn't start till Sunday. The playoffs are here. It's time to get excited for Phillies baseball. And now we get more comments. Where does Harper rank in the list of greatest Phils of all time? Man, I thought we were going to wrap this show up, mister.
He's definitely top 10.
Yeah. If he wins a World Series, he's on the Mount Rushmore. Maybe in 13 years, even without a World Series, maybe. But he's top 10, top 8. He just doesn't have that title yet. And that's all it is.
He's closing in on this generation's Mike Schmidt. Not there
Absolutely.
yet. Not there yet. But like he's really good.
He's really, really good.
I think he's the best player in baseball. I mean, you can. He's very talented, very consistent, and he seems to perform when the spotlight is on him. And I don't think some of these other players can talk about it. I'm going to throw a name out, Mike Trout. Like the guy just doesn't. He's not built to be a winner. He puts up gaudy numbers, and he's a local guy.
When he's healthy.
He hasn't been healthy for like 3 seasons.
There was actually, I didn't want to get into it tonight because we're talking playoffs. We're not talking next year. But there was a report that came out literally about an hour before the show that the Angels are going to try their darndest to get Mike Trout to Philly next year. And I just thought to myself, I don't really care.
I don't think the Phillies want him.
Yeah.
Where do you want to put him?
They're going to want Abel and Painter. They're going to want Schwarber and Abel or Schwarber and Painter. I'm not doing it. Like at this point, I don't want a banged up player. I don't need him. There's better options.
I don't think he wants to come here. I don't think he wants.
He's actually not a Phillies fan. He grew up an Eagles fan. He's not from around.
He's a Yankees fan.
He's not from around. He's from where Milford or whatever.
He's from he's about 30 minutes south of where I'm at. He's from Millville, and
he's not Philly. He's not a Philly guy.
Oh, I mean, it's right on the cusp. No. It's South Jersey, dude. Give it a break.
You're a Jersey. I thought he was from like Central Jersey. I thought the town was.
No. Anyway. I believe he. No, he was.
Well, then that makes him a Yankees fan. That makes him a fugazi for being a Yankees fan. Then.
Yeah, I do know a guy I used to work with who was a big time pitcher in Cherry Hill, who faced him twice, I believe he said, in high school, and both times he hit two of the longest home runs he had ever seen. So he hates Mike Trout, but I mean that's a personal vendetta, I guess, against them. But I don't think like he wants to play in the town that he's from.
No, I don't think so either. And honestly, I don't need him right now. No, like that's not where we. That's next year, though. That's the off season. That's next year. Mark, I think we need to do a few trending in the AM, in the PM episodes every so often, at least once a month, where I get you on. Because I know the mornings are tough for you. I enjoyed this. My whiskey is gone.
Jesus, dude.
What? It was just a rock.
Hey, listen, I gave up my dinner, and my wife is probably super pissed at me because I came right home from work to jump on trending in the AM, in the PM.
I think we need to make this a monthly thing at least. Whether we're talking Phillies, whether we're talking Sixers, Eagles, I need more Mark Moschitelli in my life.
That's your problem.
Anybody watching again, like I said, hit that like button, hit that share button. It's free to do. I'll be live tomorrow morning, 8:15 a.m. Eagles versus Commanders, final preview show. We'll be breaking down all the keys to victory. Do the Eagles beat Washington on Sunday?
Oh, they smoke them.
I agree. I think they smoked the Commanders on Sunday.
Dude, I think they get like 7 sacks on Sam Howell. I
thought last week and it didn't happen, but we'll see. Anyway, that's tomorrow morning's show. So make sure you turn the notifications on. There's that little bell next to the subscribe button on your screen. You click that bell, that gives you a notification every time I click go live. Plus Liam with his show 3 times a week. Plus Flipping the Birds. Plus the basketball shows and baseball shows. There's so much happening on Philadelphia Sports Network. You don't want to miss any of it. But I mainly do my morning show, Trending in the AM, 8:15 a.m. tomorrow morning. I got my main man, Mark Moschitelli. Shoot him a follow at Mark_Witt_A_C. I love it. Mark with a C. I am Phil Stiefel. You all have a great night. Dude, Red October is here, guys. Let's ring that bell. Let's make another March to the World Series. Let's get that championship trophy back in Philly. And you all have a great night. For Mark, I'm Phil Stiefel. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning.